All right, I'm recording.
Andrew,
Hold on, brother. Come on, get with the program.
Now,
No, we're
turn
good.
your phone around. Let me look at the front of it. Let's see. See, that wraparound display is what was really getting me.
Yeah, got the wraparound.
Yo, but pros and cons list. You come on.
I know,
Philip,
man.
I can draw things anytime I want.
Wow. So can I.
I can use my pen to control my camera on my phone.
I'm
It's
drawing a house. Drawing a house. Drawing trees.
I'm telling you, Philip.
All right, this time next week, our podcast listeners will find out whether or not I went to the Android or went to the iPhone. I was waiting for the iPhone 14 to come out, thinking
there will be sanctions.
And there's not that many new updates that get me that excited. And I'm on the mini. I'm due for an upgrade. And it's like, Eastlake Community Church is an intentional, multicultural community empowered by the Holy Spirit. We passionately pursue a loving relationship with God and everyone Jesus was sent to die for, here, near, and far.
I'm 100% satisfied. I'm three phones back. It's working like a champ.
It is. The only reason, so the mini's awesome, but the battery life is not good after 2 years. 2 years in, my battery doesn't make it through the day. So
well, that's because you're so busy with it all the time.
I don't have the mini and mine works fine. So I get a day and a half.
Wow.
Stop practicing the dark arts.
Yeah, he's a mess, man. Ray, are you like doing laundry on the bed behind you? What do you got going on over there? The world.
You see my mixing board back there?
Your mixing board?
Are you DJing on the side?
Did you get a haircut?
DJ Ray?
Does he look like he got a haircut, Michelle? I don't think he looks like he got it, does he? I just saw him 2 hours ago.
I know. Did you get a trim between this morning and now?
Oh no.
I didn't think so.
All right.
It looks like a fresh fade.
Yeah.
All right,
man. It's the ring light.
Well, if he's gonna DJ, he's got to have everything's got to be.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, I tried really hard to get a game together. So this last Sunday, Ray talked about justice. And I wanted to find a game about fairness. And guess what? There's no games about fairness because nobody wants to play a game that's not fair, right? The marketing would just fall on its face. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think? Because I have an answer for this. What do you think the most unfair game is that you can play? I've got two.
Monopoly.
Monopoly? See, to me, you earn it.
Earn Monopoly, man.
I'm telling you, because you're rolling dice. So you don't get to necessarily pick what you land on. And so it's all about just the probability of you landing on stuff like Park Place or St. Charles Place or Boardwalk. And then it's after that point, that's why it takes 2 hours to play that game.
Doesn't that make it fair though, Ray? Because then you have just as little chance of landing on it when it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
You don't know about that, man.
See, I disagree.
My dice
Monopoly,
are not blessed.
What do you guys think? Is Monopoly just an unfair game, or is it a game of strategy?
Well, I think it's a game of strategy because my son started playing Monopoly when he was really little. And I'll tell you one thing about him. He is not afraid to mortgage the farm to buy everything under the sun. He's very gutsy when it comes to doing that. And so he wins all the time. He beat my dad, who was like the champion Monopoly player.
See,
so,
there's strategy.
As a kid. Yeah.
All right, so I know the most unfair game is one of my favorite games. And it's an obscure game, so you might not even know about it. Okay, so there's a World War II strategy game. Okay, it's called Axis and Allies. It takes a long time to play that game, but here's what I mean by unfair. If you end up getting the luck of the draw and you end up being Germany or Japan, the game setup is set up the way World War II unfolded.
Oh.
Who won? Not Germany and Japan. Now
Yeah.
you can pull it off, but you are at an extreme detriment and behind the 8 ball if you
Yeah.
pull Germany or Japan in that game. Now I've
What
won against Germany or Japan, but then you're a fascist. So then
Oh,
everybody's
yeah.
mad because you won as Germany.
Yeah,
In
you don't
World-
want to be that guy. Is that the same as Risk? Is it a lot like Risk?
Oh, it's a lot more complicated than Risk, but yeah, that idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I love Risk. I stinking love Risk. I will play it for days. We'll have a Risk game out on the table for a whole week.
Yep.
Like
We
during
used to
holidays.
write down where things were in case somebody messed it up if we walked away from it.
Yeah.
No one has preached that game.
I'm trying to
Ray-
find a game.
I thought
Hey,
about it, but it's a
Ray.
lot of money to buy one of those.
Ray, your mic is kind of quiet. It's like somebody's set a sock over it or something.
What?
Yep.
Doesn't it sound weird? It's not like while Ray is fixing his
Play this. It's called Commissar. I have
Whoa.
this at home.
I'm sorry, comrade, I have not.
Okay.
Testing.
Okay, Michelle, fess up. Nope.
Well, it's a board game from, it says it's from 1966. The first comrade to sell enough black market contraband flies to the Bahamas. That's the game.
Why am I not surprised that Michelle plays this game?
I said I owned it. What's the matter, Rob?
Just let her keep talking. Just let her keep talking. Okay, to me, the most unfair game that
Hold on, I gotta
exists
play something.
is number one would be Sorry.
Why is that unfair?
Oh,
because you get sent back. Okay.
Yeah, and another unfair game would be Uno.
okay.
Sorry. Commissar.
Yeah, Michelle, you know what? I don't think I'm going to game night at Michelle's anymore.
Oh my gosh. You just play the national, you just play it.
I think that's hilarious. Don't you think that's a hilarious game? I think it's very funny.
I do.
Yeah.
Sure, Michelle, whatever makes you feel better.
That's a Pittsburgh game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a St. Petersburg game.
I think it was purchased before I could play games if it's from 1966. So there you go.
Oh, okay, guys. So this Sunday, Ray talked about justice and is a part of our series that we're in called Becoming a Church of TOV. And this was a good one. Fun fact behind the scenes. And I think I can share this. I could share this. That every time you say something like that, I feel like everybody leans in like, oh, he's going to share something that. But originally, Michelle was going to teach this sermon. Originally, she was, and we'll probably get into it a little bit in this podcast. But she came to Ray and just didn't feel like this was a good fit for her, and right now, and so Ray taught it, and the reason, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me if you want, Michelle. But this is a hard topic. Justice it's not a fair thing. Like when you start to look at justice, it's extremely frustrating. And many of us, if we're honest, that was a B. If we're honest, we wrestle with this at different points in our lives with just how can, this kind of thing be going on or whatever. But we're going to get into the things that make justice so hard, the things that also make it sweet when it works in our favor. And so that's kind of the deal that we're going to talk about today. All right. So with that said, let's just go ahead and talk about, Ray, what was the biggest burden that you felt like you had? Or anybody could chime in on this, but the biggest burden in preaching a sermon on justice. Like, what's the hardest part?
I think for me, is that I think of the four of us, and if I include Dawson, the five. I have somehow garnered the identity of bringing the hammer when I speak. And so with justice, I could lean into a lot of different areas to bring said hammer. But I think because, like you said, Philip, justice is something that we all struggle with at varying levels. And what I wanted to be really careful of was leaning into anger to bring the passion for the message and not winding up getting lost in the anger and emotion myself. And so when I said during the intro to it, is that where I want to leave you is, I think, at the best place for all of us to end up resting at when we're dealing with injustice is really at the feet of Jesus. So I'm not going to give you a whole lot of answers. You're probably going to have a lot more questions when this is over. And so I tried to focus on, okay, here's where we are. We're not settled with justice. We hate injustice. We feel like something needs to be done. But where I want to leave you is right at the feet of Jesus, that if anybody's going to help you with this, it's going to be him, not us.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Did you guys feel that too? I mean, although Ray preached this Sunday, I feel like we all kind of carried the burden a little bit of helping Ray prepare for it. Not that, I'm not trying to take credit, but we discuss our sermons together. And, what are are there any other burdens that you guys feel when this topic comes up to preach on?
Well, I think I was really wrestling with the subject. I mean, when I came to Ray, one of my challenges was just having the time to prep with some other ministry things. But, when I went to Ray, I presented just that idea that he just talked about. It's like, how do you know when you should seek justice or enact justice? And that's a very hard thing. And, I think we talked about this sermon more than any other sermon for any of us preaching, more than any other sermon recently. And I think we all agreed, Rob, you brought it up this morning, and this was almost verbatim what I had said to Ray a couple of weeks ago. Yes, the big stories are really clear, like Larry Nassar or, things like that. It's the small injustices that are really difficult to decide where to draw the lines.
I like to think of it as I've thought about this for years, actually, in a different way. But this week, it really kind of came down to me as that macro and micro justice conversation. The macro should be easy for us. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. We should kind of be ready or we should be done debating whether or not we need to seek justice for the wrongs of our society, things like slavery, civil rights, bullying, abuses, things like that. I mean, please, let's all agree that when it comes to that, it's really clear. We got to stand up. We got to stand up against injustice. Where it gets tricky for even those of us that understand that or try to understand that is in that one-on-one relationship or in that broken relationship at a small level, a family level, a neighborhood level, a church pew level, so to speak, where we've got to really be careful not to try to bend God. This is going to sound silly because we can't do this, but we try sometimes to bend God's will to our will. And that is a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
I mean, because yes, God has been clear. If you oppress the poor, you better stand up against the people oppressing the poor. It's written out. We can't avoid it. But what do you do when your cousin wrongs you?
Yeah.
Or your neighbor? I mean, that's a different conversation, I think.
So when God calls us, when we give our life over to Christ, when we become a Christian, we lay down the old and we pick up, oh my gosh, there's a snake. Oh, it's a lizard. Oh my gosh, I can't do the podcast outside.
Oh my Greg's having a heart attack now. Okay.
It's a little blue lizard. It's a skink. I think that's what those are called.
I was gonna say, that's a skink.
But anyways, when we give our life over to Christ, at least for me, in the beginning, you feel like, all right, like I've been baptized, like God's about to make everything right in my life. And when you preach this, I mean, where do you end up at God's going to make everything right for you in your life? Is that where you land?
Mm-mm. Mm.
And then,
No.
so then the question is why and how and why would God allow that? Like, okay, we're his kids. Why is he letting injustices happen to us? Why is he letting us be abused in homes, or whatever, or unrightly lose jobs, or be bullied or whatever? Like, why does that happen? That's what I think a lot of people listening want to know.
Mm.
I think this is where the verse in Romans comes to life, that all things work together for the good.
Mm.
So it's when you lose your job, it's
Mm.
when you haven't heard from your child, it's when your marriage is failing, it's when things aren't going right in your life that you actually seek him.
Hmm.
Mm.
You don't seek him when you're riding high, when the money is rolling in and everybody is doing what everybody should be doing.
Mhm.
No. And so he allows our own brokenness, our sin, to be actually the spear point to nudge us towards his direction. It's the things in our life that are the hardest that actually bring us to our knees, that helps us to realize we need help.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so true. So, like, well, keep on going, keep talking. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you guys. I just got excited by that. Well,
I
okay,
mean,
go ahead, Michelle.
I think God's really patient. He's just really, really committed to working through our humanity and our individual right to choose. And, and we like that when he lets us work through something good, but when he lets us work through something hard to learn the lesson, ugh, don't like that so much.
Yeah,
Mm. That sounds an awful lot like we like it our way.
Mhm.
yeah,
We do.
yeah. So what we're saying is that God is allowing is the key word, sometimes things to happen with with the knowledge, with the godly wisdom that he knows he's going to turn it into good.
Mhm.
And I think the thing that people wrestle with that nobody wants to talk about is like, how can God allow things like that to happen? Like, how can he allow it? Like, it was so wrong. When you think about these, I don't even have to name them. We can think about the things that have been done that were so wrong, concentration camps, lynchings, and all these things. So what we're saying is that God allowed that to happen so that he could, grow believers. Like, that is not easy to hear, and I'm not trying to be difficult with you guys, but I think people who are believers get asked this in the workplace, and this is a really a tough thing. But I 100% agree with you, Ray. So, like, my testimony would be that the times that things have been really hard, those are the times that I've gotten away with God, to the point where it's been like weeks. Like, I remember the last time things got really hard for me, I spent at least 2 weeks in solitude, in prayer, and in seeking God. And so I wouldn't have done that if things were all good in my life. I wouldn't have. I would have gone to the beach and gone skateboarding. I wouldn't have been on my knees, you know. So I hate it, but you are right. Is there anything we can say to people to help them with this? Or is this what we give them? I mean, and it's okay if it is. I'm just curious.
Well, it's an age old question, and I don't know that any theologian has found an answer that I I love, because I want to hear, well, yes, God is going to tie it up in a bow and he's going to make it clear to us in each case. But here's what I've learned. I'm going to go back to what Dr. Bill Thrasher taught me, that I hold on to all the time. It's one of the deepest theological truths I've ever heard, and I mean that. Is he says God's will for you and every person is exactly what you would want it to be if you had all the facts that he has. Sometimes, even in these big catastrophic examples that you've used, I have to rely on the fact that God has facts I don't have. And God knows that there might have been a worse option than that, and he allowed this option to happen. But the bottom line is, I've just got to accept the fact that I might just need to trust God and be angry at him for a little while. By the way, let me just say this to you if you're out there. God's okay with you being mad at him and the way it's going, as long as you're submitted to him. I mean, Job didn't say, let's have a party and eat cake. Job lamented back to God on a regular basis, but yet always deferred to, but yet I don't know what you know. That is an unsatisfactory answer to the human mind, but it is the exact right answer and the only one that I think we have. Unless when you've read something that I've missed from theologians over the years.
Yeah. And faith over time too. I mean, I'm thankful that some of the hardest seasons in my life have happened after walking with Christ for a while. It wasn't right away. And that doesn't happen for everybody. But for me, when I went through some of my harder seasons, I had years of walking with Christ to know that even in, almost like the silence of God moment of my life, that like, I'm not throwing everything out that I believe about God. I'm trusting and I'm leaning in. And what in the world is going on, Lord? But
well, I'm going to say one more thing about it, because God just brought an example to my mind that makes my point, and it's one that I've literally forgotten until just now. And it's a friend of mine told me a story about a family member. It's a true story. They were carjacked in, I believe it was Chicago, it might have been Detroit, and they were shot in the head. Like life, I mean, you don't survive a shot to the head, right? Well, they did. And the shot to the head revealed a brain tumor that no one had found, that they were able to get out of them, and they ended up living the rest of their life healthier than they would have before. Now, shot in the head is the way you want to find out about your brain tumor? Like, that seems pretty horrific. But the doctors didn't even have it on their radar.
I'd rather have just a recurring headache that we have to look into.
And what they said was, if they had just let it naturally progress, by the time that there were symptoms that would have found the brain tumor, they could have done nothing about the brain tumor.
Yeah.
I don't know why God wants me to share, but I think that ties into that. That seems this guy is at the red light, minding his own business, hanging out, and somebody comes to steal his car and shoots him in the head, takes his car. And God ends up revealing a brain tumor that saved his life, and he's alive as far as I know to this day.
Wow.
I mean, that's one perspective for me to really think about. That seems very unjust to me. You realize it gained him his entire life. Yeah. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
That's really good. So like, these are the extreme cases that we're talking about of injustice, but let's talk about the small ones. Like, what are some small ones that people at home, and you guys could type it in too if you're watching this online, but like, what are the little injustices that it's like, come again? What are you doing here, Lord? I mean, like, what are some of those things that kind of fly under the radar and have us questioning and wondering,
Well, I mean, I think treatment of each other. Anybody who has children knows that sometimes when a child misbehaves, the entire family suffers the consequences. So, you have a child that's misbehaving and you don't get to go somewhere you've planned. And, when my kids were little, sometimes I felt like, Lord, this is not fair. I'm the one being punished. I'm trying to have discipline over my children, but I'm paying the price. I didn't realize parenthood would be like that. So, that's one that I can think of that most families probably deal with.
Oh, that's so good.
It's really good.
You are in my house eating the food that I've worked so hard to provide, yet somehow you can't put your laundry up. I just got home from 10 hours of work and you can't you can't do the dishes? Are you kidding me?
You need a rest? What did you do all day?
You're tired?
Yeah, us putting them on punishment is in effect putting ourselves on punishment
Yes,
because we can't go nowhere either.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
So true,
Yeah.
man.
So,
So
you know,
true.
that's not just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
What-
it's not just when I'm overwhelmed and so I come into work and you all know I'm overwhelmed because I'm short with you. That's
Mhm.
not just. You didn't do
Right.
anything, you know.
It's not just often when people expect more of us than they expect of themselves.
Mm.
Ooh.
Oh,
As
Ooh.
if, as I mean, as if we already have our seat in heaven with wings and everything else, and so they just get a pass.
Oh man.
Oh, that one was a good one too. Yeah. Yeah. It's not just
Or worse, or worse, we expect to come to church. Rob, you said this earlier when we met. We come to church and we expect not to ever get hurt or offended.
Mm,
The reality is, if you really do read the Gospels, the disciples were quite offended often.
mm,
And people that listened to Jesus was offended. They were offended often.
mhm,
And it wasn't because what he was saying was wrong.
Mm-mm.
It's because it exposed what was wrong in each of them.
Mhm.
mhm.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Going
And
back to the silly. Oh, go ahead, Philip.
no, you go, Rob.
Going to the silly real quick. I was thinking, a group project is unjust.
Oh, yes.
Oh, those are so
Just
You're
like
the one that did all the work, and 5 little tag-alongs get an A with you.
yeah,
That is a unjust scenario.
agreed.
that is definitely unjust. Yeah. That's crazy, man. Well, so let's talk about our response a little bit, to all of this. And if you go through your day, there might be there's a very likely chance that you're sitting in bed or wrapping up the end of your day right now. It's about 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, and you're thinking about your day and the things that frustrated you and the things that you think are unjust, the unfair things, the things you would change if you were in charge. I bet you a lot of our listeners are thinking that, well, if I was my spouse, I would have acted this way or whatever. So now let's talk. We all agree there's things that are just not fair in life. We agree that God uses those things to do good, like God turns them for our good so many times. Um, what are we supposed to do? Like, what do we say to the person that's going to work tomorrow or coming home to a spouse that says that they don't love them? How do we react to people who are clearly in the wrong that we have to interact with? Like, they're not going away, but we can't. What in the world do we do? And you can say love them. I know we got to love them, but I want more. We need more. The people want to know, what do we do?
I think we have to do what Ray said at the end of the sermon, which is take it to Jesus.
Mhm.
Because if we confront them in our own thinking or in our own emotion, we may make a worse mess, even for ourselves. We might temporarily feel better if we tell somebody off, but we could end up making life worse, even for ourselves, if we're not paying attention to Jesus.
Yeah.
And so, I listen to a guy on a regular basis who came out of ministry years and years ago. And he went through a period of life where he was accused of some things that he did not do. And the Lord said to him, and you will not justify yourself. You will wait and let me do this. That's hard. But in the end, his story is that God has brought justice in his life in a way that never would have been if he had demanded it on his own. But it was a long walk.
And I think once you go to Jesus, you know, let's use a marital relationship. You're frustrated with your spouse. You're angry. Maybe you're righteously angry. Maybe it's justified. Maybe you've been wronged. You go to Jesus, and then it's important, I think, to take it to that relational level. You know, I think that's what you're looking for here too, Philip, something practical. Once the emotions have died down, which is what will happen when you go to Jesus. I mean, this is the ultimate pause on our emotions. If we go running at people before we go to Jesus, we're going to go in and we're going to be, you know, we're going to be reloading fast. But I think if we sincerely sit at the feet of Jesus and ask for his heart for the person, you sit down, and it starts with having an expectations talk. What I mean by that is when Jenny and I get in a place where we might be sideways with each other, or we're in a season of conflict, because we're parents, we're parenting kids, we get in seasons of conflict.
Oh, yeah.
They always come down to, did we properly express expectations to each other to give the other person a fair chance to say that's an unreasonable expectation? You know, I think that it comes right down to really having a conversation, because sometimes I feel wronged by Jenny and she has no idea I expect her to do that.
Yeah.
Zippo. Nothing, but I've assumed she does. And maybe if I had brought it up to her, she would say, well, here's why I can't do that. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, okay, never mind. I'm going to change my expectations. It's that communication level. But you can't do it in the emotion of the moment. You've got to do it after pausing and seeking Jesus' heart for the person that you're talking to.
And that's a really, really good advice. I bet you somebody's going to put that into practice like tomorrow. Hang on, my mail is getting delivered. I got to mute real quick.
I love him doing this stuff outside. Look at this. Yeah. I'm in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood right now. This is
like real time. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
It's real. This is legit right here.
Those more business cards.
Some checks? What do you? Oh, he's still muted.
Still muted.
You get some checks there,
guys? I think I got somebody's business cards. Hang on.
I think that's what they are.
I mean, that looks like the same color box that.
Hey, do me a favor. If they're checks and you're going to hold them up, just give me a minute's notice.
Let's see. Oh, snap.
What?
Trey!
It's Ray's business cards.
Okay.
If you guys want to reach Ray, ask him if he has a card. And if he says no, that's on him.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, sorry. That was a nice
once you bring him in, it's on him.
Okay.
Yeah, we know you got him now. So
fair enough. Yeah. No, dude, I love that, Robert. That is such good advice. Seriously, to pause and to ask expectations. Yeah, very good. One of the last points you made, Ray, our responsibility on Sunday, to me, was exceptional. I mean, like, I was like, you could have just preached those 2 points and just dropped the mic and just left. And I wanted to read them because to me, this is great advice. It says, the first one was, stop pursuing justice, looking for Jesus to join you. I mean, can you like say, what do you mean when you say that? Stop pursuing justice, waiting for Jesus to join you.
I think we all have seen injustices and been subjected to injustice. And it's interesting to me that what we do, instead of going to him first, we charge towards trying to right the wrong and then ask him to agree with us. It's the same thing that happens. So you were talking about, how this works out on a micro level, how we deal with one another. And so what happens is there's a problem between Rob and I. Rob can choose to come to me, can go to Jesus, or Rob can go to Philip, Michelle, Laura, anybody else. Now, here's the problem. If Rob doesn't come to me to let me know there's a problem, that makes the problem worse. If Rob doesn't go to Jesus, that makes the problem worse. If Rob goes to everybody else, the problem has now been magnified.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Because what Rob has done, he has gained alliances with other people. Meanwhile, I don't know what's going on.
Yep.
And so now everybody's mad at me.
Yeah.
And so Rob essentially had an injustice. He felt an injustice, whether it was real or perceived. It's an injustice for him. And so he went to garner support for his feelings.
Mhm.
And still, I don't know nothing. I know nothing about this. And at that point, he's asking Jesus, hey, you should, everybody, you should feel the way I feel about this.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, Ray is completely ignorant.
Mm.
That's what we do often. You have a problem in your marriage. Maybe you do have to try to have the conversation with your husband and it gets you nowhere. But did you talk to Jesus about it first?
Mm.
What did he tell you to do?
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't consult him before you told your girlfriend, who now is on your side because your husband is a deadbeat. Now you have her ear.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to stop this. We have to stop when we feel like we've been wrong. Our first step has to be either towards the person that wronged us or to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew 18 tells us that we're to go to the brother first or the one that has offended us. But I'm going to say, because Jesus didn't say this when he was teaching this to his disciples, I'm going to say for us, it's best that we go to him first.
Mm-hmm.
But see, he says that in other places, Ray. So you're backed up there. He talks in other places about bring your concerns and your cares to the feet of the Father, and
Mm-hmm.
and so theologically that ties in. And the
Mhm.
problem that we have is it's back to the way you define justice. We want to define justice our way, which is we win.
Mhm.
That's what justice looks like.
Yeah.
The things that I care about go my way.
Correct. Correct. And that's where the danger comes. It probably bears saying to everybody on here that Ray and I do not have an issue currently outstanding with each other.
Yet. Yeah.
Somebody's going to say, man, did you hear Ray?
Yeah.
Right.
An awful lot of talk about Ray and Rob.
Ray was at and Rob on that podcast.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's funny when you were saying that, Ray, I was thinking about when me and Kristen have counseled with young newlyweds, and more specifically on the really younger ones, the tendency when they are upset with their fiance or whatever is to tell their parents because they're young. And then now all of a sudden, of course the parents are going to side with their child. And now you're going to try to get married, and the parents are supposed to love this person that you love because you had time to move on and get over the injustice. But the parents never forgot. The last they heard, you did da 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 da. And we learned that when we were counseling with younger couples, we kept seeing that pattern. But as you get older, it's not your parents, it's your friends. And of course, your friends are going to side with you. But not only that, I don't know if me and Kristen even found this. So where we went wrong in the beginning was with our kids. We adopted 2 kids. And whenever things were not going well and we went through a hard season, we would talk about all the hard things we were going through. And we realized, whoa, whoa, whoa. All our parents, their grandparents are hearing is the hard stuff. They're not hearing the victories. Because when it was good, we weren't saying anything. We were just, and it, yeah, man, that is great advice. So, yeah. So that was the first point. Were you going to say something, Michelle?
Well, I was just thinking, one of the things I have not said, but I keep coming back to when we think about righting wrongs or taking justice into our own hands. You know, I really enjoyed the book, The Shack, regardless of what everybody thinks about the theology of the book. But one of the things it showed was how the abuse went back generationally. And so we can get mad at people for their behavior, but only Jesus understands like what brought that person to have that behavior. Now, that doesn't mean that I excuse it, I mean, when you get to be an adult, you need to take responsibility. You need to get healing. You need to not blow up at people. You certainly need to not be physically harmful to people. But we forget sometimes that people have been so broken by their own abuse that they don't know anything else, and they turn around and do that and repeat the cycle. And so I just think we have to be careful, because Jesus cares about every single one of those people.
Mm-hmm. The compassion side of justice.
Yeah.
So crucial.
That's what I really liked about the clip that you showed, Ray, on Sunday. I made this comment to someone Sunday when I was having a conversation about something that they're processing through. And I said, Ray showed this clip, for those of you that didn't see it, of what's her first name? Rachel. Dan Hollander. I could remember the last name. Confronting Nasser, her abuser, in court at the sentencing. And what I loved about it the most is here she is extending grace to him all the way to the very end. But I said to the person, don't miss that she was also celebrating, rightly so, that he was receiving just punishment for his behavior. Mm-hmm. The two really do go hand in hand.
Right.
And it's not that we don't wish or we don't want someone to suffer the consequences. Suffers the wrong way. We don't want someone to experience the consequences of their choices. We want to have grace with them as they go through it. And it wasn't like she let him off the hook, but she let him off the hook at the moment she was letting him off the hook. She was pleading with him to make the rest of his life more bearable by submitting it to the proper place. And to me, there's a lesson in that. There's a great lesson in that. She wasn't celebrating it. Man, look, I finally won. She was, man, I hate that I had to want to win for the safety of other people. Now, I hope you open your Bible and experience the grace found inside of it. Mm-hmm. I loved that, Ray. I thought that was such a good picture of what justice and grace mixed together really look like.
Yep. I agree, man. That was perfect. So that was his first point, was stop pursuing justice, looking for Jesus to join you. The second one was start pursuing Jesus, who will act and respond perfectly just on our behalf. Pursuing Jesus more than you're pursuing justice, essentially, is what you're saying. Pursuing Jesus and trusting that he is just, right?
That fills in the gaps that Michelle talked about. There are things we don't know. And so when a brother or sister in the faith do you wrong or say something wrong to you, we tend not to do the work to find out why. But Jesus knows why. Jesus knows why they're hurting, what it was that caused them to think and feel the way that they feel. We would say we don't care. We want justice. And Jesus is like, yeah, I understand that. But what you don't understand in your little finite mind is that if I exact justice, the justice you want on them, then I got to come back to you. And you really don't want this. Right? Yeah. There's a saying nowadays, a slick saying, you don't want this smoke. To say you don't want what I'm going to bring to this incident, this conversation, this party or whatever. Well, Jesus can say that about every last one of us. When we're crying out for him to act on our behalf, he's like, you really don't want this smoke. Just let me handle this. You give me your frustration. You give me your emotions, your anger, all of that. Let me give you my peace so that can keep your heart and mind in me while I work out the issue. And if I need you to do something, to apologize, to go show love, to be understanding, if I need you to do something, I'll tell you exactly what I need you to do.
Yeah, man. You're putting your faith in the justice of God. I know that God knows what to do, and I trust that he is working it out in the best way that's even better than the way I would work it out. And it's that release of that. Oh man. And that's not easy to do. That is not easy to do, but it's the right thing to do.
And if you're going to yell at somebody, yell at God.
Yeah.
That's what I try to tell my kids. If you're going to yell at somebody, yell at God, because he can take it and he will hear it, and he will absorb it, and he will graciously give you correction, but he will also allow you to process your feelings. So it is fine. If you're going to yell, if you're a yeller, get someplace alone and yell at God. Yell at him all day long. He's
If
good.
you're a yeller.
You know what I mean?
I love that. I love that.
Go yell. But don't yell to your friend. Don't yell out on the street. Yell to him.
Yeah. You guys don't have to answer this, but I'd be curious if you want to answer this. You don't have to say why, but how long has it been since you yelled at God? Just so they know we're human.
Hey.
What did you say, Rob? Today?
When was the 25th anniversary?
Sunday. This past Sunday for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably this morning.
I've had a good 3 days, but Sunday there was some yelling going on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not a yeller. I don't yell ever, but I have vented my frustration to God probably as close as yesterday, today. You know, and I say that and we're laughing about it, but I guarantee when in our frustration we weren't. But we share that with you guys to let you know, like, you can't, like, you have to take things to God. God can take it. It's all right. You know, you can be frustrated. God doesn't call you to have this like happy-go-lucky mentality all the time. I mean, he gives us joy in spite of hard times, but a lot of times the way we achieve joy is by venting so we can get it out of the way.
You know, it was not very long ago, maybe last week, when I was here in the office with Ray, and he said, I need to go home because I need to run to my prayer closet. He had several things thrown at him that he was not expecting, one which I lobbed, sorry.
Way to go, Michelle.
Yeah.
I was involved in the other one.
You were involved in the other one. Yeah. And so, you know, Ray knew that he did not have the emotional capacity to face the next meeting or the next discussion until he got alone with God. And, you know, last Monday night, I put myself in my bedroom. My daughter was even over having dinner. That's how bad it was. And I put myself in timeout. So, I mean, sometimes you got to go.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm not leaving. My daughter just showed up.
Hi, June.
It's all right. Well, and you know, it's kind of funny that you say that because we too, as a staff, have a thing where we haven't enacted it because it's brand new, but where we will give each other a timeout sign if it just seems like, all right, your humanity's showing. we just hit a timeout sign. I just think that's so important for us to share because people need to know, man.
Yeah.
We know it's not easy for us either. Which goes back to whatever Ray said at the beginning, is something like people put expectations that like we're supposed to have something that they don't. No, man, we're just like them.
Yes.
Just like them. We can react poorly. We can make mistakes. People do things wrong to us. We do wrong things to people. And I think that that's one of the keys that I hope people are learning through this series about becoming a church of goodness is like, a church of goodness is not a perfect church, but a church of goodness sees its perfection in Christ, not in themselves individually, you know. And there's so many things in an attempt to put a face on that get covered up. I mean, we've talked about truth, things that get covered up. So many things can go wrong when we try to save face as a church or as individuals and protect. This is a quote from one of these Sundays, protect our own brand.
Yeah.
You know, no, the brand is Jesus.
He doesn't need our protection.
Thank God. Yeah. Well, this one was a hard subject. And some of you guys might be listening thinking there's nothing hard about that. It is. When you really start to think about this is a difficult one. And I'm glad we tackled it. And it really did kind of, if I could sum it all up, went back to go to Jesus. And I wish we could tell you something different than that. Well, I don't really wish, but it might feel like you hear that a lot. But maybe that's what you need to hear a lot as a person in our church. I need to hear that. Like, we have to take everything to Christ and trust him with it.
Yeah.
And so, that's really where we ended up on Sunday. That's where we ended up on this podcast. But we take it to him because he's not like us. He's holy. And so there you have it. Do we have any final thoughts or anything that we want to share? Any final thoughts on justice first? Nothing? Okay.
When are the shirts coming?
Oh, the Drop the Stone shirts?
Well, or the no peace, no justice, either one. Yeah.
I have not done anything with the no peace, no justice, but just so you guys know, so we can start an underground movement, and I'm not making promises that will get me into trouble. We are working on doing some hoodie designs, shirt designs that you can order. We don't have to stock them. We design them, and then if you want to buy them, you can go on and through the link and order them and get them shipped to your house. So we're working on that, and we want to make one that says no justice, no peace with the KNOW versus the NO and all that stuff from Sunday. And there's one that we're testing out right now that's called that says drop the stone. It's going to be fun.
I'll say this on the heels of what Philip was saying and asked. When Jesus was stressed, what did he do?
Mm-hmm.
He went to the Father.
Yep.
And I think he went off onto the hillside. I mean this. I think he went up there to yell at his dad.
Yeah.
He went off alone on the side of a hill away from everybody so he could just pour his heart out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we see that in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was praying so hard he was sweating blood.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a screaming match right there. You're sweating blood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's really all that we have for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can give you a whole lot of other nonsense that maybe make you feel better or may allow you to exude or enact some type of justice. It's your justice, not his. But really, all we have for you is go to Christ.
Yep.
And if everybody at Eastlake is doing that,
woo!
I mean, everybody at Eastlake is going to Christ,
we're going to be okay.
We'll be a church of TOV for sure.
That's good. And in the beginning of this podcast, I said justice is difficult. At the very beginning, I said something like, unless it goes in your favor, which might have sounded a little weird, but what I mean by that is it went in your favor whenever God sent Jesus to die for you, for me. It went in our favor because we got what we didn't deserve in the positive sense. And so, yeah, I know. It's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. Okay, well, let's talk real quick as we wrap up. What are the things coming up that you want to know about? I know Rob has a really important thing about parents.
I do.
What is it?
Okay, so as you may know, as this is going on, we're having our first night of Midweek Connect, which is our elementary kids are now in the building with our student ministry. So in 2 weeks, we're going to add on to the top of that a weekly Wednesday night, 6:30 to about 7:45 while the kids are there. So guess what? There's a place for kids to be. We're going to have something called Parent to Parent, and it's going to be discussion based with a little bit of lecture is the wrong word. I'm going to do a little teaching at the beginning, and then we're going to have an open discussion around what we've taught about or what is relevant that day. And the whole concept is how do we become wise parents raising our kids in this world so that we, meaning you and I, can serve as the most important pastor in the life of that kid. So it's the equipping stage of putting feet to what I have been passionate with you about since the day I got here. You, mom and dad, are the most important pastor. we get to have the title pastor, I guess, but so do you.
Mm-hmm.
You're Pastor Mom and Pastor Dad, and we want to help you out.
Yep, that's good. Real good. It's going to be awesome. Anything else coming up?
Well, we've got a serve day coming up in October, and I believe that signups went live today for any East Laker to be able to sign up. So if you're in a small group and your small group hasn't signed up yet, you better take care of that so you can serve together. But if you would like to serve, you can join other people on October the 8th. So check out the projects on our website. We want to serve our community.
That's good. All right. All right. Anything else? Save the date. First weekend in October is going to be the men's retreat. Right?
First weekend in November.
In November. Everybody say November.
November.
Yeah, first weekend in November is going to be the men's retreat.
And soon we'll be telling you a lot of details about Fallapalooza, but that'll be a couple more weeks before we start getting you subscribed.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, we think very highly of all of you. You're pretty great people. We will let you go to bed. Good
night. Good night.
See you Sunday.
East Lake Community Church is an intentional, multicultural community empowered by the Holy Spirit. We passionately pursue a loving relationship with God and everyone Jesus was sent to die for, here, near, and far.